Okay, let's dive in. Have you ever had one of those gut feelings? You know, the kind that turns out to be completely spot on, but like way before your brain actually processed it.
Oh, absolutely. Or that sudden jolt of energy, maybe nervousness right before something big, and you don't even consciously know why yet.
Exactly. Well, today we're digging into something really fascinating. The incredible intelligence that's happening inside your own body, often working things out before your conscious mind even catches up.
hmm
We're calling this deep dive. What your body knows before your brain does and why it matters.
It's a great title because it really gets to the heart of it.
And this isn't just about slapping a label on an emotion, like saying I'm happy or I'm frustrated. It's much deeper.
Right.
It's about, really understanding the whole intricate landscape of your emotional responses, the subtle triggers, and those critical physical signals that often pop up before you even feel the shift emotionally.
It reminds me of that Aristotle quote.
Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom.
Yeah.
And without that foundation, that self-awareness, other really crucial parts of emotional intelligence, like managing your reactions or really getting where others are coming from, empathy.
Or even just communicating clearly under pressure.
Exactly. They just don't develop properly.
And what's so insightful here, I think, is how these physical sensations aren't just like side effects of our emotions.
Right.
They're often the very first signals of them. Sometimes seconds, maybe even minutes before we consciously go, I'm feeling anxious or whatever it is.
Seconds or minutes, that's significant.
It really is. It's like your body's sending up an early warning flare. And the goal of this deep dive isn't just to talk about these cool ideas. We want to give you a really structured, actionable framework, something you can genuinely use.
So you can actually harness this sort of innate intelligence.
Precisely. Imagine making big decisions, not just from that reactive, maybe fearful place, but from this calmer, more integrated understanding of your own internal signals. That's the real power here.
That makes sense. But okay, why does this happen? Why does our body sometimes seem to have the inside track before our brain?
Well, it involves this really fascinating dance happening inside your head, biologically speaking.
Okay.
You've got two key players. First, there's the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's ancient, super fast fire alarm.
The quick reaction center.
Exactly. It detects potential threats, emotional or physical, and triggers these immediate, often survival-based responses, almost instantaneously, before your conscious thought really weighs in.
Okay, so alarm first, think later.
Pretty much, in evolutionary terms. Then you have your prefrontal cortex, the PFC. That's more like your wise strategic advisor.
The thinking part.
Right. It steps in to analyze, to kind of modulate and make sense of those initial automatic emotional surges from the amygdala.
So the connection between those two.
That's key.
Absolutely crucial. The strength of that connection, those neural pathways between the rapid alarm system and the wise advisor, directly influences your capacity for self-awareness. Which explains why those initial reactions feel so automatic, right? They just happen.
They do. And it also explains why strengthening that connection, building better self-awareness, it really takes deliberate, consistent practice. It's like building a muscle.
And that connects to something you mentioned earlier, this gap between how self-aware we think we are and the reality.
Yes, the self-awareness gap. It's truly eye-opening. There's research, I think some was in the Harvard Business Review, showing this really stark statistic.
Okay, what is it?
Get this. Something like 95% of people believe they are self-aware. 95%.
Wow, that's almost everyone.
But the research suggests only about 10 to 15% actually meet the criteria for high self-awareness.
10 to 15.
Yeah.
That's a massive difference. Why? Why such a huge gap?
That's a great question. It's not just about, not thinking about ourselves enough.
Yeah.
It often points to a misunderstanding of how our own emotional systems work.
Like blind spots.
Exactly. Common blind spots. Things like overestimating how well we manage our emotions or misattributing why we're feeling a certain way. We blame the traffic maybe when it's actually lingering stress from a meeting. Or failing to see the same emotional reaction patterns popping up in different areas of our lives, at work, at home, and critically, tying back to our main theme, missing those subtle physical signals that precede the emotion. The body knew, but the brain wasn't listening yet.
Okay, so those blind spots are exactly what this framework is designed to address.
Precisely. To illuminate them and give you tools to start bridging that gap.
Right, because if 95% of us think we've got it handled, but maybe don't, what's the biggest hurdle we need to get over mentally? Is it just acknowledging we might not know ourselves as well as we think?
That's a huge part of it, absolutely. That humility, that openness to discovery.
So, okay, we understand the brain dynamics, we see the gap. How do we actually do something with this? How do we make it practical?
Perfect transition. That's exactly where our three-part framework comes in. We're breaking this whole concept down into observable, measurable elements.
Making it less abstract.
Exactly. And we're starting right where it all begins, with your body. Part 1 is physical awareness.
Your body's early warning system.
That's it. This is genuinely where your body often knows first. Like we said, those physical sensations pop up seconds, maybe minutes, before you consciously label the emotion. It's invaluable.
So what kind of physical signals are we talking about? What should people tune into?
Great question. There are several key areas. First, breathing patterns. Just notice the rate. Is it fast, slow, shallow, up in your chest, or deeper down in your belly? Is the rhythm steady or kind of erratic?
Okay, breathing. What else?
Muscle tension. This is a big one for many people. Are you clenching your jaw? Feeling that tightness creep into your neck or shoulders? Maybe clenching your fists, even subtly? Or noticing tension around your eyes or forehead?
Right, that unconscious armoring up.
Exactly. Then, your energy levels. Any sudden surges or drops? Do you feel a heaviness or maybe a lightness? Restlessness, needing to fidget? Or maybe the opposite, a real stillness?
Interesting. Posture, too.
Definitely posture changes. Are you kind of expanding, taking up space, or contracting, making yourself smaller, leaning in or pulling back, crossing your arms, hunching your shoulders, those protective postures?
Okay, and one more.
Temperature changes, a sudden flush, maybe warmth in your face or chest, or maybe your hands or feet get cold. Just an overall shift into feeling warmer or colder.
Wow, that's a lot of potential signals. So how do you actually, start noticing these things, especially if they're subtle?
Yeah, it takes practice. The guide suggests a really simple body scan practice. It's not complicated.
Okay, how does it work?
Find just 3 to 5 minutes, somewhere relatively quiet. You can close your eyes if that helps. Start by just focusing on your breath for maybe 5 or 10 cycles. Don't try to change it, just observe it.
Just notice.
Exactly. Then slowly, systematically scan your attention through your body. Maybe start at the top of your head and work your way down to your toes. Just gently note any sensations you encounter, tightness, warmth, tingling, whatever it is. Crucially, do it without judgment.
Not judging, just observing, like a scientist of your own body.
That's a great way to put it. And to make it a habit, try integrating it at key transition points in your day. Maybe first thing in the morning before the email avalanche hits.
Good one.
Or during a midday break, maybe around lunchtime. And definitely in the evening as you shift gears from work mode to personal time. Those transitions are often when signals are strongest.
Okay, that sounds doable. Body scan, notice sensations, no judgment. Got it. So that's part 1, physical awareness. What's next?
Part 2 builds directly on that physical awareness. It's emotional recognition, essentially, mapping your emotional landscape.
So connecting the physical sensations to actual emotions.
Precisely. It's about identifying, labeling, and really understanding the emotions themselves. This practice helps develop something called emotional granularity.
Emotional granularity? What's that?
It's the ability to distinguish between similar emotions with more precision. So instead of just saying, I feel bad, which isn't very helpful,
Right, too vague.
you learn to discern, okay, is this actually frustration? Or is it disappointment? Maybe anxiety? Or even a mix? That subtle difference matters a lot.
I can see how that would change your response. So what are the key elements to monitor for this emotional recognition piece?
Well, first think about the primary emotions, those core feelings: anger, fear, sadness, joy, disgust, surprise. What are you feeling? And what's its intensity? Is it mild, moderate, or really intense? Is it one pure emotion, or is it an emotional blend?
Like feeling excited and nervous at the same time.
Exactly. Or maybe feeling angry on the surface, but underneath there's hurt or fear. Emotions are often layered and they transition. Noticing those blends is key.
Okay, blends. What else?
Track the intensity levels. Notice the subtle hints of an emotion starting, how it might build momentum, and when it reaches its peak. Also, consider the duration. Is it a fleeting feeling or does it linger? How long does it take you to recover from an intense emotion? Is there an emotional residue left over?
That after effect.
And finally, try to identify the triggers. What sparked the emotion? Was it an external event, something someone said, or maybe an internal thought, a memory? Look for patterns here across different situations.
That idea of granularity is really clicking for me. differentiating between, say, annoyance and deep frustration could totally change how you handle a team meeting, right?
Absolutely. It informs your understanding and your potential response.
So how do we actually capture this? How do we map our own emotional landscape in a practical way?
A great tool for this is keeping an emotion log. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful for pattern recognition.
Okay, like a journal. What goes in it?
You can just set up a few columns, maybe time, situation. Then the physical sensations you noticed, linking back to part 1. Then the emotions you identified, rate the intensity, say 1 to 10, note the trigger or context. And finally, any thoughts that were associated with the feeling.
Could you give an example?
Sure, let's say 9:15 a.m., team meeting, project timeline questioned, physical sensations, tightness in chest, shallow breathing, face feels warm, emotions, frustration, defensiveness, maybe some concern, intensity 7:10, trigger, team member doubting the timeline's feasibility, thoughts, they just don't get the constraints, or feels like my planning is being attacked.
Okay, that's really specific. It connects everything.
Exactly. And for practice, maybe aim to log 3 to 5 significant emotional experiences each day. Doesn't have to be dramatic, just noticeable. Then look back weekly, see any patterns, what triggers keep coming up, what emotions. Do a monthly summary too.
We're right, building that personal emotional database. Okay, so we've got physical awareness, then emotional recognition. What was the third piece?
The third piece connects the inner world to the outer world. It's behavioral patterns, understanding your response tendencies.
So how these feelings actually translate into what we do.
Precisely. How do those emotions manifest in your observable actions, your decisions, the way you communicate? This is where the rubber really meets the road.
Okay, what should we be looking out for here?
Several things. First, your automatic responses. What are your default reactions when you feel a certain way? Habitual communication styles. Do you tend to mirror or catch emotions from others? That's emotional contagion.
Interesting. What else?
Look for avoidance behaviors. Are there certain topics you just won't touch? Situations you consistently sidestep? Do you use things like excessive busyness or maybe scrolling social media to kind of numb out uncomfortable feelings?
Yeah.
Procrastination can even be an avoidance behavior.
Guilty as charged sometimes. Okay, avoidance.
Then your communication styles. Notice how your tone, volume, or pace changes with your emotions, your word choices. Nonverbal signals are huge here too. Eye contact, gestures, body orientation.
How you show up, literally.
Exactly. Also, pay attention to decision-making patterns. Does your tolerance for risk change when you're feeling anxious versus confident? Do you become more impulsive when excited or angry? Or do you delay decisions when feeling uncertain?
Yeah, emotions definitely impact decisions.
Hugely. And finally, consider the relationship impacts. How do your emotional states and resulting behaviors affect the people around you? Are there recurring patterns in your conflicts? How effective are your emotional boundaries in different relationships?
This really brings it all together into visible actions. So, how do you map these patterns? It seems more complex than logging an emotion.
It requires a bit more reflection, definitely. You can use behavioral pattern mapping. Pick a recurring situation where you notice strong emotions, maybe those team meetings again, or getting feedback, or facing a tight deadline. Identify 2 or 3 common emotional triggers within that situation. Then, for each trigger, document. What are your typical physical sensations? Part 1. What are your common emotional responses? Part 2. What are your habitual behavioral patterns? Part 3. Then critically ask, what's the likely impact of these behaviors on others? And honestly evaluate, what's the long-term effectiveness of this pattern for achieving your goals?
Can you give an example of mapping that out?
Sure. Let's stick with the feedback example. Trigger. Receiving critical feedback. Physical sensations. Shoulders tense up, heart beats faster, face flushes. Emotional response. Initial defensiveness, maybe a flash of anger followed by embarrassment or feeling inadequate. Behavioral pattern. Nodding and verbally agreeing, but internally rejecting the feedback. Afterwards, maybe becoming quieter, communicating less with that person.
Okay, I can picture that.
Then impact on others. The person giving feedback might think you accepted it, but they notice you withdraw later, which can be confusing or damaging. And effectiveness. Pretty low, right? It prevents real learning from the feedback and can erode trust over time.
Wow. Seeing it laid out like that is powerful. How often should you do this kind of mapping?
Maybe reflect on one significant pattern each week, then perhaps monthly. Consciously experiment with an alternative response in that situation and do a quarterly review to see how things are shifting.
Okay, so it's an ongoing refinement process.
Absolutely. Now, what's truly fascinating is how these 3 parts, physical, emotional, behavioral, don't just exist side by side. They work together as an integrated system.
They feed into each other.
Exactly. It's a continuous cycle. A physical sensation pops up, your early warning. That triggers emotional recognition, giving it meaning, which leads to a behavioral pattern, how you express it. And that behavior then influences the situation, potentially creating new physical sensations and emotions. And the cycle continues.
So understanding that cycle lets you intervene.
Precisely. You can intervene at any point. Maybe you notice the shoulder tension, physical, and recognize it as rising frustration, emotional, before you snap, behavioral. You can then choose a different response.
Like taking a deep breath or pausing.
Or maybe you notice you feel both anxious and excited, emotional blend. You can consciously reframe that energy as fuel for an opportunity, rather than letting the anxiety paralyze you.
Or noticing you always withdraw during conflict, behavioral pattern, and deciding to practice staying engaged and expressing your needs calmly instead.
Exactly. The awareness gives you choice points you didn't have before.
This is incredibly useful. So how do we pull all this together for daily practice? It feels like a lot to keep track of.
That's where the idea of a personal self-awareness dashboard comes in. It's not about rigid tracking, but creating a kind of dynamic reminder system for your own unique patterns.
The dashboard. What would be on it?
You customize it, but key components could be your top triggers. Maybe you list your top 3-5 common ones at work. Your physical warning signs. What are your specific body signals for key emotions like stress, frustration, excitement? Your emotional vocabulary go beyond good, bad. What are your nuanced labels? Your response patterns briefly map your typical go-to behaviors for those top triggers. And maybe add an effectiveness rating. How well do those patterns actually work for you?
Okay, so it's like a personalized cheat sheet for your own emotional system.
That's a great way to think about it. You can create a physical version, maybe in a notebook or a digital one. Keep it easily accessible. Glance at it daily. Update it maybe weekly as you learn more. You might even share relevant parts with a trusted colleague or mentor for feedback. And definitely review and revise it quarterly.
I love that dashboard idea. Very practical.
And stepping back to the bigger picture, this framework gains immense value when you apply it directly to specific professional challenges. Think about enhancing things like decision-making, navigating conflict, or just your overall leadership presence.
Okay, how does it apply there? Let's take decision-making under pressure.
Right. So your physical awareness helps you notice that racing heart or tense jaw signaling stress. Your emotional recognition helps you distinguish, say, productive concern about risks from counterproductive fear that might cloud judgment. And your behavioral patterns show if stress makes you overly cautious or maybe impulsive.
So the strategy.
Before a big decision, do a quick body scan. Label the emotions present. Ask yourself how they might be influencing your thinking. Then consciously choose your response or decision path.
Makes sense. What about conflict navigation? That's a tough one for many.
Definitely. Physical awareness helps you track your arousal level during a disagreement or you getting heated. Emotional recognition helps you dig beneath surface irritation. Maybe the real issue is feeling unappreciated or concerned about the project's direction. And behavioral patterns reveal if your default is to accommodate, avoid, or maybe confront aggressively.
So the integration strategy there.
Monitor your physical state. Identify the primary emotion driving you. Assess if your typical response pattern actually helps resolve the conflict or just escalates it. Then, choose behavior aligned with your goals for the conversation.
Okay. And leadership presence. How does this framework help there?
It's fundamental. Physical awareness makes you conscious of the body language you're projecting confidence or uncertainty, openness or defensiveness. Emotional recognition helps you understand how your own internal state is influencing the team's mood and climate. And behavioral patterns highlight how you lead differently when you're feeling stressed versus calm versus inspired.
So a leader can check in with themselves physically.
Yes, do a quick physical check-in before walking into a room. Clarify their own emotional state. Consciously align their behavior and communication with their intentions for the team, and stay aware of how their presence is landing.
This is incredibly powerful stuff. But let's be real, like any new skill, building this awareness, it probably has challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not always easy. Let's talk about some common hurdles and how to overcome them.
Okay, number one, probably finding time for reflection. We're all so busy.
That's a huge one. The solution isn't necessarily carving out huge blocks of time, but integrating micro practices into what you already do. Use your commute for a body scan. Practice labeling emotions while you're waiting for a meeting or in line for coffee. Review your patterns quickly when you plan your week. Tiny moments add up.
Integrate, don't just add. Okay, what about emotional discomfort? Sometimes exploring this stuff. It doesn't feel great.
True. Self-awareness can mean facing emotions or patterns you don't love about yourself. The key here is self-compassion and curiosity, not judgment. Acknowledge the discomfort. Remind yourself why you're doing this, the benefits. Focus on awareness as the first step to change. And maybe talk through difficult insights with a trusted friend or colleague. Don't try to white-knuckle it alone.
Good advice. Then there's maintaining consistency. Starting is one thing, sticking with it.
Yeah, habit formation is key. Use accountability structures. Put reminders in your calendar for body scans or log reviews. Find an accountability partner to check in with. Use visual tracking if that helps. And really importantly, celebrate the small wins. Acknowledge your progress.
Okay. It may be the biggest one. Applying insights in real time. Knowing is different from doing, especially under pressure.
That's the ultimate goal. And it takes practice. The best tool here is developing specific implementation intentions. These are if-then plans.
Right.
Like, if I feel my shoulders tensing up in a meeting, then I will take 3 deep breaths and silently name my emotion. Or, if I'm about to speak in a team conflict, then I will pause for 5 seconds to check my emotional state first. Having those pre-planned responses makes it much easier to act differently in the heat of the moment.
Those implementation intentions sound really practical.
They bridge the gap between knowing and doing. And maybe a quick example can illustrate how this all comes together.
Yeah, that would be great. How does this actually play out for someone?
Okay, let's talk about Jennifer's journey. She was a marketing director who kept getting feedback about being overly intense, almost abrasive, during project discussions, which was creating tension, especially with her creative teams.
Okay.
Intellectually, she got the feedback, but she couldn't seem to change it in the moment. So she started with the body scans, part 1. She quickly noticed that before these specific meetings, she'd consistently get this tight jaw, shallow breathing, and a feeling of heat in her chest.
The physical warning signs.
Exactly. And they reliably showed up maybe 5 or 10 minutes before her communication actually went off the rails. Her body knew first.
Wow. Okay, what next?
She started emotion logging, part 2.
Yeah.
And she realized what she'd just been calling frustration was actually more complex. It was a blend of anxiety about meeting project deadlines and this underlying fear that her marketing expertise wasn't really being valued by the creatives. The granularity was key.
Identifying the deeper fear.
Right. Then behavioral pattern mapping, part 3. She saw that when this specific anxiety-fear blend kicked in, she would interrupt people, use very absolute language like always or never, lean forward aggressively, maybe cross her arms, and dismiss ideas quickly.
Okay, she saw the whole cycle.
Yes. So she created her personal dashboard. The jaw tension became a key trigger. Her if-then plan was, if I notice jaw tension before or during a creative review, then I will take 3 deep breaths, silently label my emotions, concerned about timelines, want expertise valued, and consciously choose to ask an open-ended, curious question instead of making a statement.
So she had a specific alternative behavior ready.
Exactly. And the results. Within about 3 months, the feedback from her team shifted dramatically. Meetings became more collaborative, project outcomes actually improved. And Jennifer herself reported feeling much more grounded and in control of her leadership presence.
That's a fantastic concrete example of how this works. It really shows the power of connecting the dots.
It really does. It's not magic, it's practice.
So, for someone listening, wanting to start their own journey, what does this mean? How should they approach it? You said not all at once.
Definitely not all at once. It's designed for gradual implementation. Think of it in stages.
Okay, like a roadmap.
Sort of. Weeks 1, 2, foundation building. Just focus on physical awareness. Do those morning, evening body scans. Try to note maybe 3 distinct physical signals each day. Identify one consistent pattern you notice. Keep it simple.
Okay, weeks 1 and 2, just the body.
Weeks 3, 4. Emotional expansion. Keep doing the scans, but now start adding the emotional labeling, part 2. Begin your emotion log, maybe just 2 or 3 entries a day. Actively try to use more specific words for your feelings.
Building the vocabulary?
Weeks 5, 6. Behavioral mapping. Now bring in part 3. Pick 2 common triggers you face at work. Map out your typical physical, emotional, behavioral response pattern for each. And honestly evaluate how effective that pattern is.
Connecting it all.
Weeks 7, 8. System integration. Start developing that personal dashboard. Bring your key insights together and consciously test applying an insight or an alternative response in one specific, maybe challenging context during the week. See how it goes? Refine your dashboard.
Okay, 2 months to get the basics integrated, then what?
Then it's ongoing practice, sustainability. Make it a habit. A quick weekly review of your logs or observations. A monthly check-in and refinement of your dashboard. Maybe a bigger quarterly assessment of your overall progress and where you want to focus next.
So it becomes a continuous learning loop.
Exactly. Looking at the bigger picture here, this emotional self-awareness, it truly is the bedrock of emotional intelligence. It's the shift from running on automatic pilot to making conscious choices.
Working with your emotions, not just being pushed around by them.
Beautifully put. And remember, this journey is continuous. It's not like you suddenly arrive at perfect self-awareness. Every observation, every time you navigate a tricky situation using these tools, even the challenges, it all deepens your capacity.
So consistency and curiosity are key.
Absolutely. Consistency in practice and genuine curiosity about your own inner world. And as you do this, you'll likely see those ripple effects we talked about. Maybe your team dynamics improve, your decision-making gets clearer, your relationships feel deeper, more authentic.
So wrapping this up, what's the core takeaway for everyone listening?
The time and energy you invest in understanding what your body knows before your brain does, and really exploring why that matters. It pays back enormously.
It's not just nice to have personal skill.
Not at all. It's a fundamental professional asset that genuinely enhances pretty much every aspect of your work and leadership.
And the most important step
Is just starting, taking that first step. So maybe later today, take just 3 minutes, conduct your first body scan, just notice what's there. That's the beginning of the journey.
a simple start. And here's a final thought to leave you with. Consider how deepening your awareness won't just change your own reactions. Think about how it might subtly start to reshape the entire environment around you, your team, your meetings, your conversations. How it might foster a space where a bit more authenticity, maybe even more innovation, can naturally start to flourish. How might that shift impact the very next conversation you have?